as we see the answer to the Rebbe, that he was always a keli to be mekayim the heroes, and I think that hero really applies to every chassid. Sometimes we doubt ourselves. If we are a keli, if we have the keiches, we don't have the keiches, I don't have the merits, I'm in the mood. The Rebbe is saying that every single chassid has the capacity for all of his keiches.
I'm Yossi Kamen. Welcome to Among Chassidim by Der Herr, an ongoing farbrengen about life as a chassid, our vibrant connection with the Rebbe, and inspired living shaped by the way he teaches us each and every day. Shalom Aleichem, Benji. We're ready to do part 2. How's it going?
Great. Looking forward.
Okay, so in part 1, as I mentioned, then we didn't even get into all of the folders that you have here with so many kisvei yad and documentation. I don't know, kisvei yad or answers from the Rebbe, documents, letters. So it would be very beneficial if you can go through some of them and highlight. Can't do everything, but highlight those that you want to highlight. So let's do that.
Okay. So as I mentioned during the part 1, because Mary Zayda wrote in so often, and considering the amount of things he was involved with throughout the years, I can't say he received the most of any chassidim, but he received thousands and thousands of responses throughout the years. So to narrow down exactly what to address, it's a little of a challenge, but we'll do our best with the time we have. So starting with his yachas with the Frierdiker Rebbe. So as I mentioned in part 1, when he was a bacher in Benoit in Tafshin Ches, Tafshin Tes, those years, until he came to the America on Zeis Chanukah Tafshin Yud, he was constantly asking the Frierdiker Rebbe for rishus to go to him, b'shem all the bachrim, of course. So when his request was granted, that started a whole revolution in Lubavitch with the first group of Russian Bachrim coming to America. So even the time when he was in Benoit, he communicated with the Frierdiker Rebbe. This is just one letter to him from Chav Vav Nisan Tafshin Zayin. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes to him in response to your question about learning and understanding Chassidus. The main idea is to understand the concepts. You don't have to worry so much about knowing the words. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes, "Verstehen the meaning." And the Frierdiker Rebbe's chesima. The Eibusha will help you to understand Chassidus, but the main thing is to verstehen the meaning and not to worry so much about the wording of the Maimer. There's a bunch of answers over here about Maimed. Think about how much money did the Bacher have. But Maimed was such an ikar of his kashrus that you did whatever you could to send in the Frierdiker Rebbe a few coins.
And so far, these letters that you're showing they don't have the Frierdiker Rebbe's signature. It's signed by the masker.
Yeah. This was sent from New York all the way to France. And this is another very, very important letter, which many of us can learn from. The Frierdiker Rebbe is writing to Mary Zayda here that he should be mesader himself b'shkida v'asmada nigla and dach u'lispalel b'mesinos b'li ariches. Daven slowly, it doesn't have to be at length. And v'lei leilech b'darchi aveda shelamayla memuhusei. You shouldn't exert yourself to do something, to be active in Avodas Hashem when you're not holding at that madriga. So you have to know where you're holding at. You have to know your darga and vuda house v'chulu. And then the Frierdiker Rebbe tells him to do L'tanya Bapeh and which is the Matzlacha in all of his Nyan Megashmis v'ruchnis. It's a beautiful letter, but what really hit me was this idea of when you daven, it should be mesinos b'li arichus, which is a very important hira.
How old was Zayd at the time?
This is Tafshin Ches. He was born Peizayin, so he was about 21.
He's an older Bach already.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a bunch of other letters over here about Maimid. And Friedrich Rebbe gave him Hira to learn Zvicho. And in Shchita, this was in Tafshin Ches. Him and a group of Bachrim then went to Ireland to do Shchita. I think there was a Zalman Shur was with him, his brother Sean Bear. There was a whole group of Chassidim then. I think it was led by
Zalman Shimon, no?
Zalman Shimon and Elia Plotkin. There were a few Chassidim then.
There's a whole bunch of
Plotkin.
people in Ireland doing Shchita.
Yeah. It was a very big deal then, because I think that's when they allowed Shachtim to do their work.
Shal Duchman was part of it.
Yeah, I think Shalom Duchman was born in Ireland.
Okay.
A lot of Chassidim were living there then. Okay, so here this again is many. A lot of it is, again, as I said, it's mine, but today, I mean, I don't know how much emphasis it is, but then it was like a Iker Heiskashis was to send money. And then here is a letter wishing him a mazel tov for receiving the visa. And the Eibishter is halfin that the Nisia from France to America should be kshura v'chulu v'chulu.
What's the date?
This is Chavav Mar Cheshvan Tafshin Yod.
Wow. Okay.
So, and I think I mentioned in part one that during the ride to America, the seas were very stormy, and they were expecting the worst. And Zayda wrote to his father afterwards when he got to America that holding the letter, this letter right here, that the Rebbe sent me, gave me that bitachon that everything will work out and we'll get there safely. So this is the letter here. And then this is the Chiddush of the Friedrich Rebbe when he got to America, which we discussed last time.
You said that the Rebbe, he discussed it with the Rebbe afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. Just going now into the when he got to America. So this is a very powerful answer from Tafshin Mem Aleph. There was Zayda was going through a lot then.
Tafshin Mem Aleph.
Yeah.
1981.
The reason why I'm bringing that up now is because my grandfather wrote to the Rebbe then. They were going through a lot then in Yeshiva and Tzach and his personal matters. He wrote to and there was machlekes in some of the meisters. So he wrote that he's not a Baal machlekes and he's not a Ben Baal machlekes. He has no connection. My Zayda is writing to this to the Rebbe. And he writes, from the day that I arrived in America, Kol Magmosi, my entire, I strived only to zechkachin all the inyanim that the Rebbe wants from us. He writes everything that he went through. That when the Rebbe wanted me to be involved with Tzach, I did it. And when the Rebbe wanted me to be involved with Yeshiva, I did it. Everything from that moment on. And he brings here the Fabringen of Beis Ir, Tafshin Yod, when the Rebbe Fabring with the Bachrim then to Avidas im Atzmei, Avidas im Azilas, to devote themselves to their Avidas Hashem and to the Hashpah to others. But it's a very powerful letter that he writes that I made it up on my mind then I'm throwing myself into the Yan and Believe of Nefesh. And he asks a bracha then that all the maces and everything should work out. And I don't have an answer on that.
There's no answer?
Yeah. So Shemini Tafshin Yud Beis, there was it's very known for bringing then. Chassidim would refer to it as Shabbos HaGadol. It was a few weeks after Rebbe's 50th birthday. And this is obviously after Pesach already. And there was a very big koch still from that big Jubilee year. During that Verbringen of Shemini Yud Beis, the Rebbe took a lot of mashke. I think this the description, and the Rebbe turned his head backwards or upside down, one of the two. And the Rebbe singled out the many Chassidim during that Verbringen. This is upstairs in the Zal. My Zayda then got a lot of Kruvim from the Rebbe. One of the expressions the Rebbe said then was als was David tut lemailo ba'avon v'hasago or mailo mitame das, und der Eibishter hat ihm geholfen, ist matzliach. And he held on to the Yonic spear during that Verbringen for a few moments, and he expressed the idea that mein David. The Rebbe said that term.
Rebbe was telling Beryl Yunik
Yeah.
about Dovid Raskin, and Rebbe referred to him as mein David.
And then there was also the Verbringen one Mamish almost to Mincha. The Rebbe says, Shein Spät, the Bachim darf gehen Chazen Chassidus, as if Rabbi Yonik and Dovid Raskin. Could be the Rebbe and mentioned other Chassidim also, but there was a lot of Kiruvim during that Verbringen.
The Rebbe said it's late.
Yeah. Shein Spät, that Bachim darf Shein Chazen gehen the Shul Chazen Chassidus. That was a big sturm then. They were both very involved with, like I mentioned in part one, Vad Chazaras Tzach, going to shows during Mincha and Chazarin Chassidus, Sichas, whatever it was. The Rebbe was meaning to get Sichas. I don't know, a few years later it started, but it was still, from the Fidik Rebbe and from Sefer Mem in Yiddish, whatever they had then. That's what they chazert. These are a bunch of smichas that he received over here from various rabbanim. This is from Baruch Shifrin. This is from various other rabbanim. I can't. Oh, this is from the Yeshiva in Paris, from Missen, whoever the rabbanim then were. This is from Rabbi Bekarsky, from Rabbi Bentzion from Montreal. He came into New York then. He fared Bachram. And basically, he was doing all this because the Rebbe was koching that Bachram should receive smicha and they should receive yera and v'chula v'chula.
So you got multiple smichas.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, this is another very powerful. This is actually the original Hagais over here on the Verbringen from Shmini Tavshin Yud. This was during that Tekufa that Mezid was very involved with the Sichas. So I guess somehow or another, he was involved with the publishing of this. So he received the Kisvei Yad for that.
Can I see that?
Sure.
So the Rebbe, so this is like a hanacha basically of the Verbringen.
Onion paper.
And there's all these hagais. Was it printed with these hagais?
Yeah, I think I sent it to Chaim Shol. He has it. Lahak has them.
Wow, it's a lot of hagais here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You asked last time about different expressions that Rebbe said about him. One time, I heard this from both brothers Avram and Opinion Korf Aleim Hashalom. It was Chaf Av Yud Gimel, and they ran out of mashke. So I think Rebbe Zalman Gerari asked Mezid to bring a bottle. Mezid Bechal always had in his locker, whatever it was then, in 770, he always had Mezid some mashke prepared for, in
case of emergencies.
Yeah, exactly. So, when the Mezid came back with the bottle of mashke, the Rebbe said, David tut vos me hastem ton. David does what we asked him to do. We ask him to learn mit Bachrim, to mekav zaym misnagdim, to mekav dem misnagdim. Als was me hates from them tut there. That was it's interesting that they remember that because they both like personified like Kabbalah Sale, Avram and the Pinyer Korf.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's what stuck with them because that's what they relate to the most. They said they remember like yesterday how the Rebbe, they were telling me how the Rebbe expressed that on a chassid. That it tut was me hates from them ton.
Yep.
So yeah, that kind of sums up his
who he
entire
was.
mahos. Yeah. Okay, these are the hagais on that Verbringen from Beis Ir. It's actually printed in the beginning of Teres Menachem, Tafshin Aleph. It's very encouraged, especially Bachram, to learn that entire Verbringen, which a large part of it was Magia.
You don't have the original.
No, I don't have the original, but this is a copy. I think the original Rebiel is in Rebiel's Rishos. Okay, this is a very powerful Yechidus with the Rebbe's Hagais on it, which I did not mention last time, which on the part one. My Zaydis here is asking about, this is from Lechai Kislev Tafshin Yud Beis, 1951. Mazid is asking a bracha here for various inyanim, what things are going on in his life, in his learning, in his personal life, things that Bacham struggle with. And he asked the Rebbe bracha that the Rebbe should help him to be a Emes HaChassid, that he should be a Keli to be Emes HaChassid. It's interesting, the Rebbe actually writes here Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled, the different points in the Yechidus. So the Rebbe writes over here, the Keli of the bracha, Zayin Emes HaChassid, wenige Cheshbenis in them, the things that he mentioned that are being mevavel him, the things from Sir Mirav v'chulu.
The Rebbe says to have less.
To have
Translate what you're saying.
So the Rebbe said that the bracha, that to be a real chassid, true chassid, is to stop thinking, stop indulging yourself in all the misdeeds that you did, and all your setbacks and all those things that you shouldn't be involved with. Stop indulging, stop getting so caught up in it. The Lashon Gidus that I wrote over here in pencil, rein gribbeln sich in them. To, I guess, not to indulge yourself. Übergeben sich zum Lernen, Chassidus, v'hanhaga b'darkei Chassidus, to devote yourself to learning, Chassidus, and the conduct of, and to conduct yourself in the darkei Chassidus. The Eibush will help in, is l'taka zayin emes chassid. Hashem should help you that you should taka be emes chassid. Because that's really what he wants. That's really the bakasha of every single chassid, to be a keli, to be a chassid. Which reminds me that Rebbe used a very similar expression to him once. This is in a letter from Chav Zayin Nissen Tavshin Lamed. He was Tzach then was going through a financial struggle, and actually I have it right over here. And he basically asked the Rebbe for a bracha, and he wasn't even taking a salary for himself then. They were such a bad matzav. So the Rebbe basically said that that's not the correct hanhaga. This is Drishas Rebbe Seino to take a salary for yourself. And then he asks at the end that he should be zeicha to be a keli, to be mekabel, the Rebbe's, to be mekabel heirais of the Rebbe. I'm just going to read it for you right here. So he wrote to the Rebbe here that he's not taking a salary from Tzach, and the Rebbe wrote "V'ein noch in klal." That's not the.
It's not proper.
It's not the proper approach. And the Rebbe wrote "Harei zeh dirishas Rabbisinu b'kayetz bazeh lekachas," to take the salary. There's some other personal things in Tzach in that duch. Then he writes at the end, "V'yaza Hashem yisparach, Hashem should help shebemeshech hayomim ad Beis Ir." This was right before Beis Ir, Chav Zayin Nissen. Until Beis Ir, I should be mechaven to know what to do, which is I think very applicable today for after Gimel Tammuz, that we should have we should all be mechaven to Rebbe's kavana. V'she'ezke leheirais mifurashes, v'she'eye keli to be mekayim the Rebbe's ratzin, and to be geim nachas ruach mitech archav amitis. So where he wrote that he should be zeicha to be a keli, to heirais mifurashes, to be mekayim the Rebbe's ratzin. The Rebbe crossed out the words for she'eya, and I should be a keli, and he wrote kvar me'azu, already from he wrote the beginning of the duch from Beis Ir, from the beginning of his work in Tzach, kach v'kach, and the Rebbe is making reference that he always was a keli to be mekayim his, which was a very, very powerful testament to his work. That was just in regards to his Aveda and Tzach. Obviously, we can't go through all this now. This is just a bunch of yichidus and his chasna yichidus, which was a very, very special yichidus. What the Rebbe says where the Kabbalas Panim should be, and where he wanted the Rebbe to come to the Kabbalas Panim, so he made the Kabbalas Panim in the Zal, upstairs in 770. He said actually what the Rebbe said by Fabringens under the window, and he wanted the Rebbe to come out. That was the first chasna. The Rebbe didn't come to Kabbalas Panim. He stopped going to chasnas from the wedding before already. I think it was the first chasna also in 770. So he asked him, they made the chasna in the Farband, where the Kail is today, in order for the Rebbe to be there. And as you mentioned in part 1, the Rebbe walked by, went on Kingston that night instead of Brooklyn, in order to encourage the singing and the dancing.
But the Rebbe told him he's not coming to the Kabbalas Panim.
Yeah, he was. So the entire time he was trying. He actually wrote this in the Yichidus in Zanacha. He wrote he's doing it there because he wants the Rebbe to go. And the Rebbe says, "Das stuff basically read mit balabatim them." Basically, what to say there is that the Rebbe, I don't think, liked making changes in order not to make other people jealous.
Who's balabatim?
I guess those who are more in the know about how things, what to say there is.
Okay.
Younger light. That was the Sprach Bechal. Das darf man durchreden mit Balabatim, junge Leute. Das ist nicht mein Indien. Machen is not besser. Whatever, I guess it's more convenient for people. That's where you should, all the arrangements should be. Okay. Right. It's very interesting. There's a bunch of Shana Teva letters that he received throughout the years. So already Tafshin Yadalit, he was a Bacher. The Rebbe wrote a beautiful
There's certain
titles on him.
people who get Shana Teva letters. Like,
Yeah.
and a lot of people.
I heard that if you wrote to the Rebbe throughout the year, you got a Shana Teva letter for whatever matter it was. You got a. I think that was a.
But was it continuing to be expanded? I don't know.
So that I guess you have to ask Maskiris how that worked, but
there was many people that got a Shana Teva letter, but certain group of people.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's actually very interesting. If you notice, almost every single letter, there's a different title for him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think basically it's depending on what he was dealing with during that tekufa. Malach Shemayim, Yisik Psar Chitzibur. Here it doesn't have that Rav Palim that I've added a few times to the title, or just Reish Pei.
The Rebbe's adding stuff by the signature.
Yeah, everyone. Also at the end, Birkas, the Rebbe would usually add something. Tzach Moflago, Bavidus Vakedesh, or Pshuras Teva, Pshuras Tevis, Befrat, Bechlal. It was always or not, I can't say always, but there was very often a Hisafa to letters to him. And it's very interesting to see the different. See that Menachtum Menach Shemaim, and almost every other title is different. Sometimes it's Psar Chitzibur v'chulu, sometimes without the v'chulu. So I don't know all the klalim, but the Rebbe says in a Sikh in Tafshin Yod, when the Frierdiker Rebbe writes titles on a chassid, it's not stam on anyone. It's not stam. It's actually that's the mitas and inyan. Over here, the Rebbe adds Merenu Harav.
Yeah.
The other ones that didn't have Merenu Harav, just had in v'chulu. What were we saying? The last one was one.
I think the warfen sich nicht mit the tulim.
Yeah. That these are just a lot of Shana Teva letters and birth of children. Okay, this is the early years in that capacity. These are beautiful pictures from this time in Berlin in Benoit.
What's before that?
Here.
I see some ksaviyat from the Rebbe, no?
Oh yeah, this is the letter that he asked on his brother Label's behalf. He would often write letters bakashas to Label. I mean, from his brother Label Morocco to the Rebbe. The Label's asking if he should rent a house or he should buy a house, and whatever the response was on that. The Rebbe actually writes over. He underlines that he should rent a house and should be batstacha begor. Kedoshim bekav askil tzin. The Rebbe says, as I indicated with
the line.
Yeah.
The line. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a very interesting news clip from the Cincinnati local news from August 1952 of Him America Shlichus. And
famous picture.
Yeah, I'm just pointing this out because the Rebbe Tzachana, he went to Rebbe Tzachana. He told him before where he's going and who he's going with. He writes about this in his Iman. And Rebbe Tzachana asked him if he could try to be back for Chafov.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she felt a certain closeness with him because he was involved with the original Chafov, Tafshin Dalid. He was there b'shas the Istalkus of the Rebbe's father, and of course was Zeiche with his siblings to be Mishamish and his parents to be Mishamish, the Rebbe's parents in Amata. So the Rebbe Tzachana wanted him to be there for Chafov. There's much more of that as well, but of course we're limited on time and film, I guess. This is a very powerful Doch over here, he writes about things he was going through, and he writes he's giving his personal expenses for the Rebbe's, expenses.
He's what?
He's giving from his personal money for the Rebbe's expenses, whatever the Rebbe wants to use it for. And the Rebbe wrote Nilkach v'tach. So b'derech chad the lashon is skabel v'tach. Nilkach.
I took it.
It's a much it's a stronger term.
Not I received it. I took it.
Yeah. Which that can have multiple inyanim and understanding. Over here you see the Rebbe would cut the bottom of a pan because it was a private inyan, and just give back the person's name and their in the bottom of the doch, in order for maskirs, whoever it was, not to see what the chassid wrote. So there's a bunch of scraps of papers here. That
the Rebbe is
took
writing
to the
that
oil.
he
The
received it.
Rebbe would take it to the oil. He would rip off, just give the response, and then
There's a
take the
response
rest.
on that pan.
Yeah.
What does it say?
This is another nilkach v'tach pan iskabel, just like in a bunch of swirls.
Panan.
Yeah.
Penunun.
This was then okay. And throughout the chafs, there's a lot to go through with pegishas and a lot of sharp answers. You have to remember the Rebbe was raising a new generation of afatza, and just because it was a sharp answer, it wasn't chas v'shalom, it was a chelik. It was rather that's how the Rebbe was guiding a new generation to get this new mentality up and running.
Right.
Of spreading chassidus, of being there for another yid, of doing pulas on time. I know that in the yids, Tzach got a very sharp answer from Mitzvah Tekiah Shofar. This is Tezayin or Yud Zayin or so. Rebbe writes Muznach beYoser. It was very much neglected, and why wasn't people contacted earlier? You did visitations in hospitals and wherever it was. You just showed up on the spot, whatever it was. There should be communication beforehand, but this was all brand new. No one knew how to run these things. So, in Canaan today, these things are just, this is our bread and butter. This is what we do best. But then it was all brand new, and everything had to be done according to the Rebbe's kavanah. And
later
Rebbe's
years,
teaching.
the Rebbe gave some answers that
it's already 40 years.
It's already 40 years that
Yeah.
I'm holding you by the hand. Now you're on your own. So what you're saying is that these answers that he got was that period of the Rebbe holding them by the hand.
For example, this is from Chavches Shvat Tavshin Mem. They wrote to the Rebbe that Mitzirf Bezeh enclosed is a brochure for Purim, which was coming up. It was edited by various people. We printed 30,000 in small format and 20,000 in bigger format. And we hope to include these in the Mishlech Manas to going out to people. The Bachman are going out to Mifsaim and various armory bases, whatever it was. The Rebbe writes there, Vishlefenehel, Lefanav V'chulu, underlined. This is the same brochure as years before. Kapashut Sha'af Echad, underlined 3 times. She's Beinin, underlined 3 times. V'chulu, did anyone even look it over to see that Hashta Purim b'Mitzvah Shabbos v'chulu? Did anyone see that there's manim are different, that the updated v'chulu?
Yeah, the wrong day of the week.
You have to remember people were under pressure, I think, to get things out, and not always were.
They're so organized.
They're always so mindful of various changes.
Among Chassidim is brought to you by Chassidische Der Herr. We live in a chaotic world, a world where for us Chassidim is a seinu, lei ra'inu. We do not have the ability to hear and see the Rebbe on a daily basis. Yet we know that the Rebbe is very much with us, and the Chassidus Chabad is alive and thriving more than ever before. One needs to only tap into it. Chassidische Der Herr provides you and your family with the tools necessary to tap into all of this. Whether it's the monthly magazine, the way it all began, whether it's Der Herr books, Der Herr online content, and so much more. Men women and children throughout the world benefit and use these tools on a daily basis. Whether it's children enjoying the children's magazine that comes along with the regular derher, or enjoying the children's podcast, whether it's bachrim in yeshivas receiving the derher, whether it's girls in high schools enjoying their hair club in their local high school. People all over the world and from all walks of life enjoy and utilize these tools and take advantage of it. If you're not already subscribed to the Derher Monthly Magazine, do so today at derher.org. That's derher.org. Derher is a dynamic organization which is committed to continue providing these tools, grow on a constant basis, and do all that we can to help this effort. Baruch Hashem, it takes a lot of resources and finances to make this all happen. You can be part of Derher through your financial support as well, through visiting our website derher.org, or through contacting us to setting up a meeting. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
So, yeah, this is actually a very powerful answer. This is from Chav Tevis Tavshin Lamed Vav. So there was a concept called, there's a publication called, was very active before Derher.
Mm-hmm.
There was something called the Ufaratza Journal.
Yeah.
This was like the Derher B'shaite.
I've heard from some people that were involved in it.
Yeah.
When
Mayor Simcha Rifkin, today he lives in Florida. He was the main publisher.
Yeah, when Derher started, they
a
were
lot of
telling me that the first version of such a thing was the Ufaratza journal. Okay.
So they wrote over then this Lamed Vav. Obviously, the Rebbe storming very much in Shtachim, now giving away territories, Yehuda v'Shomron, and Eretz Yisrael, giving back any territories to the Arabs, Chulu. So they wrote to the Rebbe that Mitzurv Bezeh, in this article, in this upcoming magazine, will be featuring an article on the Rebbe Shitta of not giving back land. So this is mamish, this is such a nuanced response. Pashut shaloi hatfis, this. The Rebbe is saying not to print the article on his own shitta, on his own stance on giving away territory. Shareit tzarech lies ufaratzto. The name of the publication was called Ufaratza Journal. The whole idea of this is Ufaratzta Amitis, true Ufaratzta. Hainu koilo kim teir mitzvahs gam al yidei elu shedaitam b'negei l'hashtachim havchis mehanal. Meaning to say, this has to reach people whose stance on giving away territory, meaning they could be pro that for whatever reason, is heipich ma'it.
So Ufaratza means that it should also reach such people that may have a different shitta than me. That's what I was saying.
So
therefore not to print it.
But at the same time,
in the Ufaratza, it's not an Ufaratza piece.
Right. But at the same time, the Rebbe is storming about...
Every Verbringen.
Literally every Verbringen. The Rebbe is screaming about that. But on the other hand, when it comes to in Yanim Ufaratza, to be sensitive, not to print it because, it should have its appropriate effect, desired effect. He just writes throughout the Doch how many people looked it over, and it's all ready to go. And it's basically to be Geir Nachas Ruach that we're going to print your shit on this. And the Rebbe said not to print that. So in Tavshin Lamed Vav, 1976, after Pesach, there was a very big shturim. The Rebbe coined it Shnas HaChinuch, the year of Torah education. The Rebbe then spoke Lag Ba'omer, the first 6 of which would be 12 psukim. And in general, there's a very big shturim then to enroll Jewish children in Torah day schools and in the summer and summer camps. So Tzach then produced a brochure. Here it is. It said, it said actually, what will your child grow up to be? Jewish? ? That was that's how they, marketed the campaign. To really, hit home that point that, you never know what your child's going to grow up to be if you don't get a Jewish education now. When they sent in that brochure to the Rebbe, they got an answer, which I was told by Rabbi Yossi Karlitsky in Tel Aviv, the shlichter in Tel Aviv, who was very involved as a bacher in the pools of Tzach. The Rebbe wrote, Harder Yisrael, Afa Pishachato Yisraelhu, Omam Makim the Shiloh. Yidden, even though they, sinned, meaning they didn't get the proper upbringing, they're still Yidden Yisrael.
So what's the question?
Omam Makim the Shiloh.
Yeah, what are you asking them?
How can you
will they grow up be
how
Jewish?
can you advertise it in such a way? There's no question.
But it teaches you a big lesson when you're marketing. So your clickbait and all that type of things. You wanna
Right.
get the hook. But if it's not proper, it's not eisgehalten, you can't do it. Even if it's good marketing. So
Yeah. In general, on that note, there is a ton of hadracha. Obviously, we're limited on time. We can't go through everything now. That Tzach received, especially in regards to Pekishus, the men's and the women's Pekishus. There's one famous one from Tevis, Tavshin Memhei, where they made a brochure. What is Purim more similar to, Halloween or Yom Kippur? Think about it. It's a catchy theme because Purim, Halloween, and you do a Purim, Kippurim. It's a nice twist, play on the words. Anyways, it was such a sharp answer back. The Rebbe said basically to burn every remaining copy of it. First, take off the Beis Hay. That's something that Tzach always got. Make sure the Hayes of Beis Hay underlined 2 times. Always on Beis Hay was a very big Haydah. And all publications that have Beis Hay. And getting back to the answer, question mark, exclamation point. I think there were multiple question mark and exclamation points then. I don't have mine in front of me now, but it's around, it's printed. But yeah, but on the note you're saying that it's sometimes can really be appealing and engaging to have such a headline. But of course, this is not eisgehalten, so the Rebbe doesn't say to put it in Shemus or to throw it out, to burn every remaining copy. Destroy, lahashmid, whatever the lashon was. So that's that. So getting back to this answer, the Rebbe wrote Har Yisrael after Bishachata Yisrael Oma Makim with Shiloh to ask what will they grow up Jewish. So they changed it to be, does your child know what it means to be a Jew? You see over here, they made multiple colors for
they wrote, what will your sons and daughters be when they grow up? Jews, of course, but will they appreciate why? Will
right.
They know how?
Yeah, that is.
They wrote.
Yeah, and in general, all these publications, as mentioned, that Rebbe looked over and in great detail, because you need to remember that Rebbe was then laying down the foundation for all Lubavitch's pulas until Mashiach comes, and until today, Shluchim are operating based off these heiros and this hadracha that Tzach received then, and of course other Shluchim received, but Tzach was the main Mesid, which was operating these mivtzaim v'chulum and executing these mivtzaim. So just this is Lamed Vav, going back a little bit. As mentioned in part 1, a huge chunk of my grandfather's life, of his life of activism, was the years of Tavshin Lamed Dalet and Tavshin Lamed Hey. Those 2 years, it was like a marathon of mivtzaim, pa'ulas, and nuhirois. Things were coming out in a very fast-paced motion. And what's his name? It was Yasser Gerlitzky Nachman that said that after Verbringens and after Kufa, my Zayda would go to his office downstairs in the Levitsk library. We had his office, and he would call Shlochim, Nachman Sudek in London, Mullah Zimov in Paris, Shlochim in America, and then it was ready, 4 o'clock in the morning. By the time the Verbringen end over here, in Europe and other places, in Eretz Yisrael, it was already much later. So he would say, from Nachman, the Schwafst, with his Wamid, we can see Schwafen. What did you do already? The Rebbe just spoke about the Verbringen, that we have to machen zicher that every child gets a Jewish education, and that the upcoming Yom Tov that has to be with the ganze Sturm, we can see Schwafen. So Yasik told me sometimes he would say, "Wait a little bit. Let's wait for the Elam to start going to sleep. Now we'll call."
The purpose.
Yeah. So that was his. That's where everything operated in general. From
I was speaking to a
Big East
shliach
Side,
and a shlucha. There are shlichas like in the mems. We didn't have plans. We got a fax. Matzah Shabbos. We knew what the plans were for the week.
yeah, the general gave orders for that week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Tav Shalom Dal Lamed Hey, again, those were very, very in Lamed Vav. Those years right before the heart attack in Shmini Atzeres, there was like a very, very big push for all in Yanim Hafatza. And of course, as the head of Tzach, Meisid, which was responsible to execute these pulas, the head of it was Maizeda. So all these heroes that went to Anash went through him to the Meisid, etc. So there was Baruch Hashem. There's a ton of hadracha and answers to updates and what was happening since the Fabring and what they were printing and etc. All the resources. And it's interesting during that Tekufa on Tes Zayin Adar Tav Shalom Hey, my Zayda's parents from Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef and Dovid Raskin, were in New York then for a chasna of their Einikol Bravman, Rivka Bravman, which was then getting married to Yechanan and Gerari, who today they serve as shlochim in Cholon, and they were zeicha then to have a yichidus. So, I mean, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef and the Rebbe, they had a very there was a lot of answers to him, and the Rebbe had a lot of hakar satev that he was from the Reishams Askim with his father, and Amata together with his children. So there's a lot of history there. So in that Yechidus of Tez Zayin Adar Lamed Hey, the Rebbe told him the following. I have the nocha of it right here, which testifies very much on my grandfather's askanis during that tkufa. The Rebbe told them as follows. Firstly, the Rebbe says, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef was machter. Achakach pana to his wife. The Rebbe returned to his wife, upon him face with a beaming face, and he asked her how she was doing. It was all with a very simchatik atmosphere. And then he writes as follows: I gave the Rebbe then the pan concerning my son David and his personal matziv. The Rebbe took the pan and he said that he will bring it to the Tzion, in addition to the other panim that I gave him, I guess his own pan. And the Rebbe said as follows. He writes, "V'hischol l'shabeach es David v'spuleisav." He started praising David and all of his pulas. V'omar, the Rebbe said, tut asach, macht Eden, tut asach in Yiddishkeit. But to translate that, tut asach, he does much. Macht Eden, he transforms Jewish lives. Tut asach in Yiddishkeit, he does much in the realm of spreading Yiddishkeit. So it's just very interesting, just on a very human level, to see how just seeing Duches and Skabel V'tach, he's reporting, updating what's being done after Fabringens, and what the Bachrim are up to, what the Shluchim are up to see that the Rebbe like telling parents, by the way, your son is doing very good work here, in my work in Afatza Mayanis, and I just wanted to inform you about that. So it's it touches me very much to see that how the Rebbe related to parents about everyone saw Rabbi Dovid. Rabbi Dovid was Tzach, Yeshiva. He saw him as an asking Karnais. The Rebbe sees it as a parent and a child.
Right.
It's a totally different lens. So that is that. And just to go over one brochure of Tzach, they wrote in then that they then gave out brochures for all the Mitzvahim, and every single, you can see over here, for example, this is actually an original. For the envelopes of Tzach, they printed Mitzvahim in every one of them. First there were 5, and then there were 10.
So the Rebbe's writing here is all English guys.
Yeah.
Those on every right. The Rebbe writes on every right doorpost. Every home should have a basic Torah books. Chumash Siddur Tehillim, the Rebbe added in etc.
It added a D
Siddur.
Yeah.
It's
Extra
2
D and
Ds.
Siddur. Yeah.
Candle lighting for Shabbos. And the Rebbe changed it, crossed out 4, X'd out 4, and the Rebbe wrote Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov. And then approximately, it says by women and girls from 3 years of age, the Rebbe wrote approximately.
They should light Shabbos candles.
Mm-hmm.
The Rebbe wrote it, yeah.
But
But I think the editor is also very interesting. Like most people, they write they put together a campaign to light Shabbos candles. They write light for Shabbos. For Shabbos can mean on Shabbos itself. Chas v'shalom. So the Rebbe made sure to add the word erev.
This is like an envelope.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
every envelope, Tzach, and every really all the stationery, even on the back of this.
Right.
You notice
Everything
you
has
have
the
all
campaigns.
the campaigns. That was Tzach's main thing. The
This is
10.
it?
This is after the Hagos.
Right, I'm looking if they have it. Yeah, on the right doorpost. Approximately. They wrote Erev Shabbos and Yom. Every Shabbos and Yom Tov Eve at the proper time.
Yeah.
This
Unfortunately,
doesn't say approximately 3 and up. So I don't know if it was before
Doesn't say
or after.
approximately?
No.
Unfortunately, there were times where the Rebbe's edits weren't incorporated, and for whatever reasons, either it was a copywriter, whoever it was, that didn't incorporate the Rebbe's Hagos on previous brochures. So the mistakes were repeated again and again, and that got the Rebbe very upset. That how many times will the mistake will be repeated, and there was one sharp answer that Tzach got. Again, this was a lot of this was very new, so we would all probably make similar errors. At a certain point, the Rebbe wanted very much for Tzach on their own initiative, meaning Lubavitch. Tzach again was just serving at the forefront of all pulas. That on their own, that they shouldn't have to send in every single last thing to the Rebbe, and that the Rebbe should have to fix everything. The Rebbe wanted to train us that we should lechatchila publish things be'efen mesukan. This is here a tzarto from Beis Kislev Tavshin Lamed Zayin. The Rebbe wrote l'cha'era in quotation marks. Kvar bo hazman, the time has arrived. Shebekayach atzmam, on your own initiative. Yoitzim la'er hanal v'kiyitz bazeh be'efim musukan. You should be publishing these publications in the correct manner. I shouldn't have to go through it every single time. Deborah writes, for example, they wrote that Taras HaMishpacha, please keep this important tradition of family purity. They wrote tradition. This is a mitzvah chashuva b'yeser. And to be
Did I write the English word?
Yeah, tradition. And he writes in Hebrew, but it's not a tradition. Be'alma ki mitzvah chashuva v'cholu, underlined. Lizar b'lashen shelo yuvan shishar ha'mitzvahim ein chashuvim chas v'shalom. Not to exclude that others aren't chashuv, but rather. But you see how on top of these things the Rebbe was. Then he writes at the end, Betach yesh eid v'cholu, meaning definitely there are more edits to be made. But it's very interesting to see how the Rebbe trained us how to think like him.
Yeah.
He was doing this over the years, and this is not even like in the notes. This is Lamed Zayin. The Rebbe was like, I already gave you all these instructions. Why are these mistakes being repeated again? And again, it was edited by a team of experts, and they were trying their best, but either they didn't know previous Hagais, or they didn't know what was incorporated, what was from the Rebbe, what wasn't. But whatever it was, there wasn't like Google Docs back in the day where you could see, everyone was on the same doc. Everything was being done in a very, just on paper. So that was that. There's a lot to discuss on the Mivtzaim. But moments in ever safe, how many things could be said, and I want to move over a little bit to yeshiva.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, that was his first job in Askanis Siburis as already a bacher in Yud Gimel or so. He got married a Dalit, so he already started a year or so before his marriage to get involved with yeshiva. He was mashkiach, and then he taught chassidus for the younger bachrim. And then he took more of an official capacity in Dan Hollow after the Tekufa of Tevis Tafshin Yud Zayin, together with Rabbi Yale and Rabbi Shalom Arazov. So the three of them, as you see over here, they would, from that Tekufa and on, they would constantly update the Rebbe on all matters of yeshiva. They would write to the Rebbe on the matzah of the Bachrim.
They were the young Hanala.
Yeah, the Rebbe said then, ich will haben the younger Hanholo, meine Hanholo, in the Hanholo then, and he appointed the three. But yeah, the three of them were the Rebbe's boys, and they every single thing in Hanholo, they would update in yeshiva. I mean, they would update the Rebbe with.
And the Mamish asking the Rebbe what to do with this bacher and that bacher.
Yeah, and they got Hira Pratius for various Bachram things. Some things were very sensitive matters. Certain things, things that Bachram that Hanhala has to deal with Bachram. Yanim of Gesund, Yanim of Sormira, and Asitev, Bechulu. The three of them also were in charge of the Kanim, which came out in which the Rebbe instituted in that Tekufa of Tafshin Yotes. The Rebbe he was kaching very much in a Faratzta, and the Rebbe said there should be also Faratzta and Luminatero. And the Rebbe wanted 7 Bachrim to say Pilpulim in Chassidus. I think Mitzvah Shabbos was the time that it would happen. And 7 Bachrim to take Achrais Pilpulim in Nigla. So I think Rabbi Mentlik and perhaps Shalom Razv as well were in charge of Nigla. And Mezed and Rabbi Yale were in charge of the department of Chassidus. The three of them got a lot of Heirais over here. So if you see at the bottom over there, Maizeda asked the Rebbe if the Rebbe can instruct him what is the Hismanus, what's
the job of the Hanhala?
What is the appointment of the Hanhala?
The Rebbe says, Any kevel mi befrat, Shaykh. The Rebbe is not saying who should do what.
Aval mi yikarim.
Aval mi yikarim, like kulam shachasa, what is lacking by the Bachrin? Nitader kach, there's no kach. Ulegam pachis is even less than a kach. Not only is not a kach, but there isn't even less of that. Label limud, not in learning nigla or chassidus. Label in that tefillah, not in davening. Kein in regesh sugebundenkeit. This is printed. There's no feeling of connection to the yeshiva.
It's not that hollow.
It's the bachrim. Should mashpia al hanal. That
No,
affects the kach and limud and nigla
yeah.
chassidus. Aber Tamidim Hanacha Kenirim, you said this al.
It's a little hard to read because it's mamish on the bottom.
Yeah, it's a copy also.
And it goes around.
The Bachram don't have this connection to the yeshiva because they feel that the Hanhala, and this is that they don't have any. The Hanhala is not interested in their well-being, in their status. Even to help them in any which way. Wow. So it's understood. The Rebbe says how this affects the time in the yeshiva. Mm-hmm. And the main thing, how is this happening for already a few years?
Doesn't concern anyone.
Yeah.
Is this an holo? Is this what's the lashon?
Halazeh menahel hanhola
Yukare.
evad ruchni v'kesav zeh yikare. Can this be called a hanhola or a menah ruchni?
But the interesting thing is,
Or
even after these answers, and my Zayda did get chalak my Fabrengens. There was one Fabrengen Kidua, and I think it was Vayeshim Im Aleph, about Yibis Psukim booklets, and the Rebbe wanted it to be printed, and there was some disagreement how it should be done, whatever it was. Everything the Rebbe then said, a person could be a melech, but you don't have to be melech malchi amlachim. There was, and then people wrote in, and the Rebbe still said it should be shaykh to him. He's still the person in charge. It's very interesting how the Rebbe operated that, you know.
Well, someone that was working on the Hanachas was telling me that off air, he was saying that when they got these sharp answers from the Rebbe, it wasn't like, the way they took it, it was
Kirov.
yeah, like the Rebbe's telling them what to do. Like even if
you're worth the Rebbe's like energy to invest in you.
Yeah, even if it's sharp, but okay, fine. Yeah, like it wasn't like it was a positive.
Sure.
Yeah.
Over here, they write about the different inyanim of the Seder Shiva. The Rebbe writes, Yaviu legisi shlita. The Rebbe was very careful that not to step into the Rashag's territory. Also, it's interesting.
You should bring it to Meshvaga.
Yeah, because he's in charge of America's Yeshivas Tenchatum, so this is shaykh to him.
Right.
It was interesting to see the two departments of Lubavitch. And then, there was constantly updates of meetings of Anholo. By meetings in Anholo that the Shag always wanted to hear. Dovid Raskin was the famous thing we spoke about it in part 1. Because after he was in Dovid Raskin, like that was he knew that he was like the Rebbe Shliach in the Anholo. Anyways, this is a very I don't know if I think Lahak actually printed this in the back in his office one week in his fathers. This is an answer, mamish 2 weeks before Chav Zayin Adar, Tafshin and Beis, from Yud Adar Aleph, Tafshin and Beis.
Tafshin and Beis.
And Beis. They wrote to the Rebbe here, Mezeda actually, B'Shem Shtatz V'Asifo Dovid Raskin. So just a little background. After Rashag passed away, this is Memtes. First after Mentak passed away, Memches, then Rashag passed away a year later, another. So the Hanhola took on a different, a higher role. Hanhola Ruchnis basically took on like the entire yeshiva, everything going on. Like Mazeda then became like masker of Hanhola. The position started, shifting up a bit. So you see in a few of the duches that he wrote from the Asifas of the meetings of Hanhola, he signs masker in his name. I think later he was also, technically had to be the president just for legal matters. But over here they write to the Rebbe that it seems like they're giving 6% of the salaries for the yeshiva in order, I guess the matzv was dachuk v'cholu. It was a little, the financial matzv in yeshiva wasn't too good. So they write to the Rebbe how they were going to, I think that the pshat is that they're taking less for the salary until the matzv is more stable. The Rebbe writes here, and they asked that bevade is a yigrim nachas ruach to the Rebbe, which is a yigrim that the matzv yeshiva should be barchava g'dela v'chulu. So the Rebbe writes, Gadol kapashet. Again, this is just 2 weeks before Chav Zayin Adar. Gadol kapashet. V'api mash nemar b'ishalcha b'rachava. B'ishalcha b'rachava. And tell him it says, I'll go bread. Ubevadei shetzarech liyis hascholo begashmis di'inin hachi ruchni teim chitmim.
If there's harchava, yeah. Let's start with Teim
Di'inin hachi ruchni.
Right.
It's very Askel Tzin, and the Rebbe adds L'cheira Chaser Iker. Kama Talmidim Ditesvu B'Yeshiva Me'es Asiva Kedamus. How many more Bachim were added to Yeshiva since the previous meeting? And another answer, that's a very powerful answer. Another answer he received was Gadol Haschos Teim Ch'Timimim, that it's Mekarev Beis Mashiach. This is an Aleph. Have it somewhere over here. And then for every milestone of Teim Ch'Timimim, he would get another answer about that number. Let's say, for example, this is Tafshin and Aleph. was 93 years of Teim Chetumim. So the Rebbe compared that to Tzaddik Gimel Kelim Shayo Meitzim B'Beis HaMikdash B'chol Yom. Like it says in the Mishnah, B'Yachad Im HaKein Harei Zeh Tzaddik Daled. So I guess it was actually 94 years, because the previous year was Tzaddik Gimel, and it's just interesting to see how every year the Rebbe connected that year of Teim Chetumim. Again, this is all from Mem Tes and on, which it seems like the Rebbe also took on a new shlav in the role of Teim Chetumim. That same zettel, the Rebbe wrote in Skabel V'Tach, B'vadish b'negei l'maisa, shesef maisa, b'chashav tchila, yiked debay v'chulu. This was about the verbringing of Tesvav Elul, marking the Yisasas of Yeshivas Teim Chetumim. So there was a lot of hadracha in those last 4 years or so from Memtes in an incredible way. But I just wanted to skip from Tzach to Yeshiva, because this was basically his whole life. You'll see like an envelope from Tzach for the Matzbah contest in Tavshin Mem, which I'm not sure where you got to, but that was a whole Inyan B'fnei Atzmei. He's like writing the Bachim who were going America Shlichus that asked for shos for whatever, how many weeks. Everything was one matziv.
Different hats.
Yeah. You see that clearly actually by when the Rebbe gave out dollars to Tankistim at the end of Verbringens. That started, I think, Chai Elul Amidalid. So my Zayd is there, like, helping the Bachim go by. Leibel Groner on one end, and my Zayd is like in the middle. There were two actually serving the same position about the Masader. But in that moment, like in that time, he was serving like three positions.
About the Masader and Holla.
And Tzach.
Yeah.
Tzach. Like Mrs. Sternberg says, when she was called into the Yichidus, was Leil B'dikas Chametz, I think it was Lamed Daled, Lamed Hey, one of those years. So she walks in Ganina Tachten, and there were 4 people there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She was called Mamish Erev Pesach to Yichidus. The 4 was J.J. Hecht was there, Yasa Weinberg, Rabbi Chadakov, Mezeda. They were all wearing gartlach, and she had to like figure out why each one was called in. J.J. Hecht was had the radio. Yasa Weinberg, I think was had also the radio. So he was involved with Shemeris Chabad. Mezeda was involved with the tanks and Mifsaim, and of course she was the Achrai for Neshek. So some just I thought about that because of the positions, but during that time of Tankistim, Imam saw that all of his various positions that he played. And one of the pu'ulas of the Teim Chetumim, B'chlal Teim Chetumim was just B'derech Klal was learning B'shkid V'asmoda Nigel V'dach. That's what Yeshiva is. There's no pu'ulas. One of the rare times that the Rebbe wanted Teim Chetumim to get involved with the Pula was concerning the Sefer Torah Klali, Tavshin Mem Beis. You're familiar with that?
Yeah, sure.
So I had the zettel here before. It's a very interesting zettel where he writes that we are trying to figure out how the letters should be split up, which sniffing should take what. And then the Rebbe writes a response: everything about this doch is not negea. How many letters were tachlis, were sold, were already purchased? In general, that was it seems like that was the Rebbe's approach. Of course, things have to be done and say the Masudar and figure out. But like I think that I wrote Kol Zeh V'Chol Chis was in Ikra Klal underlined. Ki im kama nirshmu b'pel. How many were signed up b'pel? But that was just in regards to a pu'ulas of Teim Chetumim. But besides for that, this was life. This was his life. My aunt, I remember one time saying that on his way to Shul, she used to think like the walk took like a half hour or 45 minutes from Montgomery. He lived in Montgomery between Kingston and Brooklyn to 770. But obviously it's a 7-minute walk maybe. But the part is every other person was blocking Rabbi Dovid. Benegei this, Benegei that, Benegei the Ashidach, Benegei the Teim Chetumim, Benegei Tzach, Benegei this Pula, Benegei this Halva. He was a ish klali, so everything was he had so much on his plate on a regular basis, and this was his life. Shnei Nahara. He was zeichet to much herois, as we see the answer to the Rebbe, that he was always a keli to be mekayim the herois. And I think that hero really applies to every chassid. Sometimes we doubt ourselves. If we are a keli, if we have the keiches, we don't have the keiches, and I don't have the merits, I'm in the mood. The Rebbe is saying that every single chassid has the capacity for all of his keiches. We daf nervelen,
Yeah, and the Rebbe...
We just need to want sometimes, and things take effect when things start rolling. Derech klal, energy has its impact.
Right, and it's also that the Rebbe is working with the people that make themselves available.
It's true.
So every one of us should be able to make ourselves available to the Rebbe's causes. And then...
Right. I'm just thinking, as you're saying that, to make yourself available, that means you have to be plugged in. I don't, besides for one or two times, my Zayda had to be in Eretz Yisrael for a family matzav. I think with his first yahrzeit for his mother, some other times, which even then he wrote into the Rebbe for a shlichus. I don't think he ever missed the Fabringen of the Rebbe. From the first Fabringen of Yemei Achel, we spoke part 1 of Beis Ir Tafshin Yod, until Vayakil and Beis, for one or two times, I don't think Mezid ever missed the Fabringen of the Rebbe, period.
Yeah.
Rabbi Goldberg, Allah Shalom, I think his name is Yaakov Shlema Goldberg.
Who?
He's a son in Morristown. He's a son Shlich in Brazil. So he would say that...
he was mentioned by Pearson on the podcast.
Oh, yeah?
The Sichos, yeah.
So yeah, he was a typer. So we'll get to that in a second. So he would tell his kid, I had this from his kids just recently. He told this to me, but his kid told me this, that my father would always say on Dovid Raskin that he has Ruach HaKodesh. What's Pshat? This was Mitzay Yom Kippur Tafshin Yotes. I'm sorry, this was Mitzay Yom Kippur Tafshin Chav Dalet. It was after the, davening v'chulu, everyone home to break their fast.
Shlomo Zarchi spoke about it in the...
Oh yeah, he spoke about this. Yeah, it's mitamol. So Rabbi Goldberg is in my Zayda's room in 770 typing, I think, the Hanach from the Rosh Hashanah Fabringen. And he hears the phone ringing and ringing and ringing. There used to be a phone where the sink is today, upstairs in 770, down the hallway, where the sink is.
Payphone.
There used to be a payphone there. I heard they took it down after Rebbe spoke a sicha, Lag V'Eimer Lamed Ches, that B'Shas Learn Torah has to be like Shabbos. No phones.
Ringing, yeah.
Just imagine today. It's a little harder today with
so they took out the payphone then? Okay.
So they took it, yeah. So they took out the phone. Anyways, the phone was ringing and ringing. And he was ignoring it, Whoever was in him didn't stop. So he finally got up and he went out of the room and he went down the hall to see who was calling. It was Mezed on the line. He goes, "What's 770?" So he says, "Stam, it's empty. There's a few Bachim and Zal that came back from their meal, but Shah still." He said, I'm in the middle of printing the Anocha, but I'm in the middle of typing the Anocha, but not much is happening. So he goes, "Bam Shazay, Garnish." He goes, "What should be happening now?" Mitmal, he tells me, as he's on the phone, he's like looking down the hall. He sees the Rebbe leaving the room into the Zal.
The Rebbe went instead of Maimer.
Yeah, the Rebbe went all the way to the table, like where the window is, whatever it is, between the two rooms. And the Rebbe Mitmal put on a tichel and he started saying a Maimer. I think a Maimer from the Alter Rebbe. There was a few Bachim there, Rebbe Mizarchi, Shon Belevit, and a few other. And so he tells the Rebbe, he tells my Zayda that the Rebbe just left his room, and he hung up the phone and ran. He went to get his end jacket and ran to Zal. So Kamuva Mizayda did the same on his end. He went running from his house and he came in the middle of the Maimer. But he said after that, my derech eretz for him was next league. The fact that he felt that he was so in sync. Yeah. I'm saying on that note that I don't know if he ever missed, I don't think he ever missed anything that ever was involved with, Fabringen wise. Then there was the Maisa with Zosha Postner. When he went on Shlichus, my Zayda called Zosha's sister's house where he was staying and said, "B'Shem Tzach, we want to make a Tzach and Shalom for you." This was, I think, Elul Tafshin Chai, and middle of Fabringen, Rabbi Chadikov went into the room, went into the Zal where the Bachim were verbringen, where Tzach was hosting a verbringen. And he said if it will be a Seder, that Rebbe will come in and continue the verbringen. So just again, how you see how Tzach was behind that Rebbe verbringt, because Tzach initiated, in general, Tzach initiated many verbringens of Tzeitzchim the Shaloms, of Shlochim who were going out. I saw a few Zettlach. I know Rabbi Altein in Winnipeg, I think he went out Lamed Beis. There was a Zettel, Rabbi Shalom Levitin. He went out also, I think Lamed Hay or so, a little maybe earlier, to Seattle. So Tzach put out a Meidah that they would be hosting a Tzeitzchim Shalom for him. But yeah, I mean, then the charter planes from England, when they came in, and I think it was Chaf Aleph, I saw the signs in the Zal. It said B'Shem Tzach, Ruch Ma'bayim, they were taking a chrais for all the Yadim, obviously Tachas and Siyas of the Rebbe. But yeah, they're gracious chosim, and we darf mamshach sein der Arbeit.
Okay.
As much as we can.
Yashakech Gadol, and thank you so much.
Yeah, till next time.